And we are excited to partner with Teepa Snow of the Positive Approach to Care. I'll be right back after these words from Teepa with an invitation that you will not want to miss.
Thank you, Tina. In my experience, care partners are distressed when the person says, I want to go home, and they are home. My number one tip for overcoming this and other stressful moments while providing care is to pause and reflect. You want to go home, offer a choice. Do you need to do something there, or you just don't want to be here? I'll be sharing more tips like this at our upcoming presentation, and I hope you'll join us. Back to Tina for the details.
Understanding yourself as a caregiver and what you need with Teepa. This is a free event that's going to take place on October 13th at 1 p.m. on Butler University's campus. Call us at 317-254-0828 or visit joyshouse.org to register today. And we cannot wait to see you.
Amber and Nigel here, inviting you to join us as we kick off the weekend every Friday around 5:45 with Beer Sample Friday, brought to you by our friends at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus.
Find the path to recovery that works for you. Learn more at cdc.gov/stopoverdose.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the Second Amendment. And this is the Gun Guy.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom. Bang, bang, bang.
With Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And good afternoon and welcome to the Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. We're glad you're with us. Hope you enjoyed what turned out to be a beautiful afternoon, a little cooler. But really nice out there. I saw a lot of people enjoying themselves on the circle as I walked in, and that's always nice to see. We want to see people down here. I'll be down here for the Colts game tomorrow. Looking forward to that. I have a son who lives in Denver and a daughter who lives in Jacksonville, but they're both still big Colts fans. And I have another son who lives here in the Indy area, and all of us together, along with two of my grandkids, are all going to the Colts game tomorrow. So I am fired up for that. It's good to see Jonathan Taylor is not only healthy and was I believe planning to play anyway, but filed an extension or was given a contract extension. It's a better way to put it. And paid a bunch of money, got a 3-year extension to his contract. So that's fun to see too. But hey, you don't turn into the Gun Guy Show to get a weather report or an update on local sports. We've got an awful lot of Second Amendment issues to get into. It's going to be back, by the way. We missed last week with the IU game. I was just checking the schedule. IU plays at noon next week, so we should be just fine for the Gun Guy Show here again next week. I think the Hoosiers had today off, which also opened us up to make sure we had a Gun Guy Show. But I want to get into a case I've been involved in that also involves a statute that I was involved in getting passed. And that involves self-defense immunity. And what we mean by that, and this is a really important issue, is it deals with civil liability. That is the ability to get sued or the vulnerability of getting sued and someone collecting damages from you in a civil lawsuit if you simply defend yourself. And listen, I've been involved in a lot of training, not only as an instructor, but as a student. And I've been to dozens of classes. I remember going out to a training facility outside Vegas, out in the desert in Pahrump, Nevada, called Front Sight, and it's sort of imploded since then. I think they're trying to reorganize. But at any rate, if you went out there were a number of series, a number of lectures that they had you attend as part of the training out there. And one, and I've heard this thing 3 or 4 times, was Defending Battles 2 and 3. And I remember seeing that title. I'm like, well, that's interesting. Now we're talking about defending ourselves against multiple bad guys. What are we talking about here? But when you go to this training session, this lecture, it's taught by a police officer, which I don't know was the best choice. I think I should have been by a defense attorney, but maybe that's my egocentrism speaking there. But it was the ones I went to were conducted by a police officer, and he said, listen, Let's say you have an encounter on the street where you're forced to use force to defend yourself, or even deadly force to defend yourself, to defend your family, or you're forced to defend your home with force, including deadly force. Winning the battle against the bad guy, what may turn out to be a gunfight. Winning battle number one is just battle number one. What we're now going to talk about is winning battles 2 and 3. So that was the context of the title of this thing. And it went on to say your first thing to be concerned about is whether you're going to be criminally prosecuted. And he talked about, what I've talked about, which is certainly in parts of the country, you're under more risk of this because of quote-unquote liberal prosecutors who are going to look at an issue and say, oh, yeah, well, this person may be claiming self-defense, but I don't like the factual background that led to this person needing to use force and self-defense, and so I'm going to file a criminal case anyway. So criminal prosecution is sort of battle number 2, which is what you got to worry about if you use force and self-defense, because the way the law of self-defense works, and if you listen to the Gun Guy show, you understand this part. The way the law of self-defense works is it takes an act that would otherwise be a criminal act, in fact, could be a very, very egregious crime, like killing a human being. Is the act of killing a human being intentionally? Is that a crime or not? Well, under many circumstances, it certainly is. It's murder. You can go do a whole bunch of time in jail, or even under some circumstances, what we call aggravating circumstances, get life in prison with no parole, or even the death penalty for intentionally killing a human being. But the law of self-defense takes that same action, which is intentionally killing a human being, and says, no, under some circumstances where it's justified, not only is it not a very, very serious crime that could land you in jail for decades or life or even the death penalty, no, it's not a crime at all. You go home and sleep in your own bed at night. It's exactly how that law works. And it all is determined by whether or not you meet the test under the circumstances of your use of force for justification under the self-defense statute. Or I say self-defense, by the way, that's always going to include defending other innocent parties. So if you're not justified, can you be criminally prosecuted? Absolutely. Can you believe yourself to be justified and have criminal charges still filed? You bet. Prosecutor's office may simply disagree and file charges. But then let's say you don't get prosecuted at all. Or let's say you do get prosecuted, but you win. You have the case dismissed, or you even win it at trial to show that you were justified. You can still get sued potentially. You can still get sued by the injured bad guy, or let's say you use deadly force, the bad guy's not still around, his family. File a lawsuit. It's called a wrongful death lawsuit, and try to collect civil damages from you for having caused the quote-unquote wrongful death of their family member. And so that's what, in going to this lecture, winning battles 2 and 3, that's what that was all about. Because, okay, you won the gun battle. You won the fight where someone was trying to break in your house, or someone was trying to hurt you on the street or commit a violent felony against you. You won that battle, but now you got to worry about criminal prosecution. You got to worry about civil liability. The Indiana self-defense statute for many, many years had some language in it, right in the self-defense statute, and this language is still there, that says no person shall be placed in any legal jeopardy whatsoever for the justified use of force as defined in this chapter, and that is the self-defense law. I'm paraphrasing that, but that's almost exactly what it says. And so we had this long-running debate. Well, what does any legal jeopardy mean? It certainly would mean you can't be prosecuted and convicted for a crime, because what you did was justified. Does that also mean you can't get sued? Because in that again, in those lectures that I've been to many times, and not just the one class I'm talking about out in Nevada, I've been to many others where an instructor at some point said, by the way, if you use force, even if you're justified, even if somebody breaks into your house in the middle of the night and they get hurt or they get killed because the homeowner defends himself, because you defend your home, you're going to get sued. Just count on it. You're going to get sued. And I always remember sitting in that room hearing that lecture saying to myself, asking myself, why is that okay? You're going to get sued. Just plan on it. And a lot of people say, oh, yeah, a guy breaks in your house and you hurt him, you kill him, you're going to get sued. Well, that's what we took a hard look at in 2019. And it was based on a particular case of mine. Because, by the way, in my many, many years as an attorney, I just hit 40 years as an attorney, which is shocking to me. But I've defended a number of people. I believe it's 8 now, people who have taken a human life in self-defense in the defense of a third person. And every one of them were absolutely justified. Some of them, they were simply under investigation because they used deadly force. Like the hero in the Greenwood Park Mall shooting, Elijah Dicken. He was certainly never prosecuted for a crime. But when you're being a part of, you're caught up in a homicide investigation, it makes a lot of sense to have a lawyer. Other people were sued or were prosecuted for a crime or both. But I had a particular case, actually goes back a little bit earlier than 2019, that really compelled me to say, you know what, it's not okay that we should just expect to get sued if we defend ourselves or we defend our homes. That shouldn't be all right. That shouldn't be accepted. And when I hear one of those lectures, oh, yeah, well, even if you're completely justified, you're going to get sued. Everybody sits around and nods and say, oh, yeah, well, that's going to happen. I've never been okay with that. And so here in Indiana in 2019, we changed it. And we changed it in a very good way. I'll tell you about the case, and I've talked about it before, but it's worth revisiting. Certainly worth revisiting because it involves a very heroic young lady, a single mom at the time. But we'll talk about the case that inspired it and then the change in the law and how that change in the law has benefited someone here very recently, right here in Marion County, where I'm doing the show from right now. But in the meantime, we're a little past the quarter hour, so we're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
We feel.
Do you feel like we do?
Feel it as soon as you step out the door.
What you feel.
Bundle up. Feels like winter.
It's going to be more like summertime.
Do you feel like we do?
All the feels.
It feels a little like winter.
Feels more like summer.
Of fall.
It's kind of the clash of two seasons.
Weather. Mornings and afternoons.
The ebbs and flows this time of the year is so evident.
On your official fall weather station. 93 WIBC.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. And our most popular class is our Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class. And our next one is coming up Saturday, November 4th. It's going to be 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Indy Arms. It's about half a day of those important legal information that you need as an Indiana gun owner, including a detailed discussion of the law of self-defense, which I'm talking about on the show tonight. I'll talk about our new immunity statute, but go into a lot of details on a lot of other issues as well. Again, this is 5 hours of the most important legal information you need if you own a gun, and certainly if you carry a gun in Indiana. You can sign up for that right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
Some days I cover up because of my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. Now I'm hitting the road with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months. And Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. And visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKY-RIZZI to learn more.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out.
Binges, blackouts, regret, shame, trying and failing to drink less or quit. Hi, I'm Jonathan, founder of Or Health. I know how scary drinking too much can be because I struggled with alcohol misuse for most of my adult life. But I also know that it is possible to drink less or quit. And medication can help. Naltrexone is a safe, effective medication that makes it easier to cut back or quit drinking, so you don't have to rely on willpower alone. I started Or Health to make access to naltrexone convenient and private, to help people like me regain control over alcohol.
If you're ready to stop drinking or just drink less, text WILL to 323232 to get a secure link to Or Health's private online assessment. Our licensed medical professionals will evaluate your assessment, and if medication is right for you, prescribe it online. We'll deliver your prescription right to your door. No doctor's office visits required. Text the word WILL to 323232 to get started today. That's WILL to 323232.
This is Dwight Freeney, and I've teamed up with Indiana Donor Network and Donate Life Indiana to get the word out about how you can save lives in your community. Did you know that more than half of the people waiting for a life-saving organ transplant are people of color? That's why I said yes to being an organ donor, because I want to help end the wait. You can help too. Sign up to be an organ donor next time you're at the BMV and talk to your family about your decision.
Were you born from 1945 to 1965? People born during these years are 5 times more likely to have hepatitis C. But most people don't know they are infected. So even if you try to eat right, exercise, and take care of yourself, you can still have hepatitis C, a serious liver disease that often has no symptoms. In fact, people can live with hepatitis C for decades without feeling or looking sick. But over time, hepatitis C can cause serious health problems, including liver damage, liver failure, or even liver cancer. Getting tested is the only way to know if you're infected with hepatitis C. That's why the CDC recommends everyone born from 1945 to 1965 get a blood test for hepatitis C. Treatments are available that can cure this disease. So talk to your doctor about getting tested. It could save your life. A message from the CDC.
We're all different. 1 in 5 of us live with a mental illness. Don't filter who you are. Talk to someone you trust. Learn more at bringchangetomind.org.
No Kid Hungry is providing healthy meals and hope to hungry kids so they can build better futures. Learn more at helpnokidhungry.org.
Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back to The Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. We're glad you're with us. By the way, before I get on with the show, I want to send a shout out to the people who came with a night with WIBC over at the Indiana Historical Society. They have got a really beautiful theater in that building right over at 450 West Ohio. So it's right downtown. But gorgeous facility. But we do this almost every year. I think this was the 4th one. And it was just a really fun night. It's a situation where an event where people can buy tickets and they come and there's a meet and greet, kind of a cocktail hour beforehand. They've got hors d'oeuvres and whatnot. So it's a time to take pictures and shake hands and just meet with listeners, and which is always just a lot of fun. And people are so kind and sweet. But then there's a presentation where each of the weekday hosts, so Tony Katz and Casey Daniels and Rob Kendall and Hammer and Nigel, they all come out and do sort of a miniature version of their shows, but they do it live there from the stage. And there's a lot of interaction. It's not being broadcast, so the old FCC rules don't apply. So people can get a little more creative in their language or discussion topics or whatnot. But and the crowd was just so into it. And, Jason Hammer in particular is just really good at getting the crowd fired up. And he had us sing along at the end, the song Shout, if you remember that from Animal House. But anyway, it was just a lot of fun, and people were really, really sweet to me. I wasn't part of the presentations since I'm just a weekend guy, but they have a round table at the end where they have the weekday folks, and then Tony Kennett, who now has a show on weekends, and Abdul, who's been around for a long, long time, and Ethan Hatcher, who comes on right after me here on Saturdays. And we all joined the weekday folks, and we just had, kind of a discussion roundtable moderated this year by Tony Kennett, who did a really nice job. And that's a lot of fun. So we're answering questions and having a bit of dialogue. And, you get that many talk show hosts on the stage at once. Not everybody agrees on everything, which is where it gets fun and interesting. So anyway, it was just a really neat night. I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I really enjoyed meeting people. If you were there, particularly if you came up and took a picture or shook hands or we just had a discussion, I just want to tell you I really appreciate it. People were really sweet, and it meant a lot to me. I always really enjoy that evening. At any rate, let's get back to what I was talking about before. But I'll tell you what, before we do, our pal Buzz has called in and has a question. So let's go to the phone lines. And Buzz, welcome back to the Gun Guy Show, buddy.
How you doing?
Doing all right. What you got?
Okay, my question is, here lately I've been hearing a trend where after the situation, they're waiting on a toxicology report. Now, are you subjected to like a blood draw or something if you get in this situation?
Yeah, you can be, Buzz. And a lot of times they'll say they want to take a breathalyzer or they want to do a blood draw. You can certainly say no, but if they then get a warrant, they're going to take a blood draw whether you want them to or not. Now, do they have a probable cause? Can they meet the requirements to get a warrant? More than likely. That there's, I believe there's even a statute, and I don't get involved in vehicular accidents, but my understanding is a law that says if you're involved in a fatal automobile collision, that they take a blood draw. And so I imagine, a homicide, and it may be a justified homicide, but the intentional killing of a human being, whether justified or not, is still called a homicide. You're involved in a homicide. You're involved with the death of a human being. I would expect authorities, and in my experience, they do take a blood draw, and they want to run that through toxicology. Now, let's say somebody's kicking my door down in the middle of the night, and I don't know them. They've got no connection to me. It's not my wife that I've locked out of the house, or, someone who's entitled to be in my house, or I've invited into my house. It's a total stranger who's just breaking into my house. And they kick the door in. So I defend myself, defend my home under the Castle Doctrine. That's legal. You can use reasonable force, including deadly force, to prevent or terminate an unlawful entry into your home. So that's exactly what I do. I prevent or terminate that unlawful entry into my home with deadly force. Castle Doctrine says I can. But let's say it's a Colts Sunday, and I've been sitting in front of the TV for 10 hours watching football, Colts game and the later game and Sunday Night Football, and I'm pounding down beers the whole time I'm doing that. So I'm point whatever, well over the legal limit. When all of this transpires, where after this person breaks my door down, does that mean I was no longer entitled to defend my home? No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that at all. I can be inebriated, intoxicated, or impaired, and the danger in that is that you will use bad judgment and do something that is not in fact justified or not in fact legal. And obviously, when you drink to the point of intoxication or impairment, you can do knuckleheaded things. And if those knuckleheaded things happen to be a crime, then they can send you to jail. But the mere fact of intoxication or alcohol use or the use of another intoxicant doesn't turn what would otherwise be a lawful act into an unlawful act. Now, can the prosecutor spin that in such a way to try to make you look irresponsible or make what you did seem to be unjustified or illegal? Yeah, but that fact alone doesn't change a legal act to an illegal act. But that doesn't mean they can't still check if the police officers decide that's information they want. Now, again, you can fight it. You can say no. Then it's a matter of whether they have the ability to get a warrant from a judge to collect that blood draw from you, notwithstanding the fact that you have not consented to that. And there may be a legal fight involved in that as well. But interesting question. Tell you what, we're at the bottom of the hour, so we're going to take a break. Great question from Buzz. We always want to take our calls from our listeners. You have a question, you have a comment, you want to join the discussion, give us a call. It's 317-239-9393. That's 317-239-9393. We'll be right back. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Tony Katz.
I alphabetized my soundboard. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. F?
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
I have to go to S for Sopranos. Makes sense.
Yeah, I think you got it.
It's so clean now. It's fantastic. Yeah, we have clearly run out of things to talk about. There's nothing else going on in the world.
It's a great world, everything's so.
This show is stupid.
Tony Katz, mornings 6 to 9 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
The deals and specials are sizzling hot. It's the Central Indiana Gun and Knife Show next Saturday and Sunday at the Stoutfield National Guard Armory on West Minnesota Street. The best dealers in the region, hundreds of tables, just $6 for adults, kids 12 and under free. Must be 18 or accompanied by an adult. Buy, sell, trade. Next Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Stoutfield National Guard Armory. For more info, visit CentralIndianaGunShows.com. Now is the time to plant. Warm days and cool nights provide the ideal growing environment. Visit Damon's Garden Center West at 4914 Rockville Road for beautiful homegrown mums in assorted colors, quality trees and shrubs, and a wide variety of grass seed. The knowledgeable staff is ready to assist you. For any of your garden and landscaping needs, stop at Damon's West.
Damon's Lawn and Garden, Indiana's most complete garden center.
Get revved up for the return of Indiana Pacers basketball. The season tips off with opening night presented by Kroger on Wednesday, October 25th.
Mathurin into the lane for a two-hand Smith slant, perfectly executed.
Be there for every dime, every dunk, every game-winning basket all season long.
T.J. McConnell with the steal and the basket.
Tickets for all games are now on sale. Fans' Choice and a Pacers Plus plan are also available. Visit Pacers.com/tickets for more info.
Fox News, I'm Ann Carrick. Black smoke fills the skies in Gaza City as Israel defends and retaliates after a deadly attack by Hamas. Fox's Trey Yingst.
Hamas is in control of Israeli villages and towns along the border. This is something that Israel probably has trained for in the past, but when it is put into practice, it's incredibly difficult to defend against.
The military group firing thousands of rockets, pushing into Israel and taking hostages. The White House standing ready to support Israel.
In Israel, of course, you have U.S. military, U.S. Army Patriot batteries in the Saudi Kingdom and Qatar, the United Arab Emirates. There's no question U.S. military forces will be on alert to make sure that this doesn't escalate.
Fox's Lucas Tomlinson. In Russia, lawmakers considering revoking ratification of a global nuclear test ban. America's listening to Fox News.
PA Jewelers in Brownsburg is your place for fine jewelry, custom pieces, one-of-a-kind pieces, vintage pieces, and also your place to sell jewelry. 3754 South Green Street in Brownsburg, PA Jewelers inside Premier Arms. You have old jewelry from grandma or jewelry you don't wear anymore? Come sell it for top dollar at PA Jewelers. I've sold jewelry there. My wife has. You're going to love the prices. PA Jewelers inside Premier Arms, 3754 South Green Street in Brownsburg, premierarms.com.
JMV here for Miss M's Home and Garden. It's the big fall sale at Miss M's Home and Garden and Sundown Gardens this week. 20 to 40% off nursery stock at Miss M's and Sundown Gardens. The nursery still has a large selection of container trees and shrubs. Visit Miss M's and Sundown Gardens to save between 20 and 40% off through the 15th of October. Miss M's Home and Garden on State Road 135 south of Whiteland Road in Bargersville. Sundown Gardens at 186th and Spring Mill Road in Westfield.
Why? Why take a chance? Why risk a mistake? Why say something? We all have reasons why we choose to ignore the things that give us pause, that seem out of place, that don't feel right. The word why can either paralyze us or empower us to stand up and protect what we love. So if you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my family.
I see safe for my friends.
I see say for my students.
We see say for each other.
I see say because all of this matters.
We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies this community we're all a part of. So protect your everyday. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
The show about gun rights, gun safety, and responsible gun ownership. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back to The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. Talk a little bit more about civil immunity, what that really means here in Indiana, how that law has changed, and what inspired the change in the law. Before we do, though, Brian has called in. And Brian, you got a question for us, buddy?
Yes, it's been a long time, but I had a DWI in 84 and won 8 months later in 85. So I was convicted of that felony. And then I had some problems in 91 where I was convicted of forgery, a Class C felony. And I haven't been arrested since.
Okay.
I was wondering if I can get I've never owned a firearm. I was wondering if I can purchase one.
Yeah, no, with any felony on your record, Brian, you cannot buy a gun. Under federal law.
That's what my probation officer told me.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter how long ago, it doesn't matter what level of felony. And what was the first one? I heard the forgery.
The first one was my second DWI, I think, was a D felony.
Yeah. No, I mean, I hear that one a lot. The bad news is with a felony on your record, no matter how long ago, no matter what level, and there's a bunch of BS, Brian, out on the internet. You'll see people on the gun-related pages going, oh, if you have a non-violent felony, you can possess a gun in Indiana. Well, no, you can't.
Right.
But that's absolutely untrue because under federal law, which applies to us here in Indiana as well, any level of felony, you cannot possess a gun. You're looking at a maximum of 10 years in prison. With any felony, doesn't matter what level, doesn't matter when it was. That's the bad news. But, Brian, the good news is that we have expungement in Indiana, and expungement is available for not all felonies, like sex crimes can't be expunged, and official misconduct, like, a political corruption type situation, that can't be expunged. But for a lot of crimes, certainly not all, but for a lot of crimes, and this applies to both forgery as well as a second OWI, you can get those expunged if it's been at least 8 years and you've got a clean criminal history. You paid all your fines, fees, and court costs, any restitution. You completed your probation. Then if it's been 8 years with a clean criminal history, and what you're telling me is it's been well past that, then you can get that expunged. And now for a C-level felony like the forgery, the conviction remains a public record, but your rights are restored, including your right to vote, to hold public office, and to possess a firearm. For lower level felonies like D's, that we used to call D's, now we've got a new system. As of about 2013 or 14, they changed the categorization for crimes, at least felonies. So we used to have A through D plus murder, And now we have numbers. We have level. We don't call them class anything. It's level 1 through level 6, with 6 being the least severe, and then murder on top of that. But for level 6 felonies or class D felonies, those are actually sealed off your record where the public cannot see it. Law enforcement, the court system can see it, but like for a job situation, doing a background check or something like that, they can't see those. For the higher level ones, they remain public records, but you get your rights back. So I handle expungements all the time. Anybody interested in one of those, you can contact my office. It's through relfordlaw.com is the best way to do that. And I love doing it because I love restoring people's rights. That feels good. I've done them where people have not had their ability to possess a firearm for 25, 30, 40 years. And they suddenly get that right back. And it means a lot to them. And it's something I love doing. So if I could help you in that regard, Brian, give me a call. But let's get back to what I was talking about, which is self-defense immunity and how that law changed here a number of years ago. And this case actually started unfolding, for me anyway, in early 2019. But a couple of years earlier, I believe it was in 2017, there was a very heroic young lady, single mom, was just going through a divorce, a couple of teenage daughters, in a very small town down in southern Indiana, Rising Sun, Indiana, right on the river. There's a casino down there. It's a pretty little town, but a small town in Ohio County. By population, the smallest county in Indiana. But she was in a more or less rural area, and her mom called her one afternoon and said, "Do you see this guy parked across my driveway?" She goes, "No, that's weird." And she looked out her window because her mom was her neighbor in this fairly rural area. And she looked out her window and she saw this kind of beat up compact pickup truck parked across her mom's driveway, sort of half in the street, half in her yard or on the driveway. And there's a guy that's in the truck, but he was acting really strange. He'd get out of the truck, he'd get in the bed of the truck, and he's like digging through the trash that's in the bed of the truck, and he's like picking up like cigarette cartons and shaking them. He's looking at them. I don't know whether he's looking for drugs or what, but he's muttering to himself, and he's just acting really weird. And so she's talking on the phone with her mom about it and said, "You know what? This guy's acting really strange. It's really weird that he's parked across your driveway. Well, let's just call the police." So her mom calls the cops, calls 911. And a local officer, who's actually a conservation officer, is in the area. But before he effected the stop, he actually was off duty, but he had his son with him. And he didn't want to do a traffic stop with his son. And his son knew Kisty's daughter. And again, the lady I'm talking about is Kisty Phillips. And again, I've talked about her a lot. She's a real hero to me. She's a hero to a lot of people for reasons I'll describe. But Kisty's daughter knew this officer's son. And so the officer dropped his son off and then went around to see what's going on with this guy. And as he saw the police car coming in behind him, he started moving. He started driving, and he ended up right in front of Kisty's house. The officer turned his lights on. The guy pulled over and right away got out of the truck, and he's cussing at the officer. He's yelling at the officer, and, profanities and other incoherent gibberish. The officer's going, "Look, you need to get back in your vehicle, sir." And he just ignores that. He goes, "That's all right. Stop. Put your hands on the vehicle." He ignores that too. And he basically walks right up on the officer and tackles him, plants him, puts him on the ground on his back. And now they're fighting, and they're fighting over the officer's gun. And the officer's not winning this battle. The bad guy in this situation turned out to have been a high school wrestler. He's a pretty stocky guy at this point. And he's high on several different drugs, including meth, as it turned out. So he's fighting the officer. He's winning the battle. They're fighting over the officer's gun, and officers losing that battle too. And at one point they're watching this and they realize the officer's in immediate danger of getting shot with his own gun. Kisty grabs her handgun and heroically runs out there, and she's yelling at this bad guy, "Stop, stop, get off him, stop, stop." And now the gun's coming around, getting very close to being pointed at this officer's face. Christy realizes there's nothing else she can do. She fires a shot. She intentionally shot this guy in the shoulder, thinking she would just knock him off the officer. A lot of times people just see people getting shot in movies, and they think, as soon as you get shot, you go flying through the air. And in this case, a bullet deflected off a shoulder bone, went through both lungs, and killed the bad guy. Now, is that the justified use of deadly force? Well, what is it? You can prevent yourself or a third person from serious bodily injury. Is getting shot in the face with your own gun serious bodily injury? Well, of course it is. Is getting murdered serious bodily injury? Of course it is. You can also use deadly force to prevent the commission of a forcible felony. Is someone shooting a police officer who's just doing his duty lawfully, is that a forcible felony? Absolutely. So she was preventing an unlawful forcible felony, to wit, murder. She was preventing serious bodily injury or death to this officer. So absolutely, she's 100% justified. Officer said later that when he heard the shot go off, he thought it was him dying. Said he said a little prayer that he just hoped his son didn't watch him get murdered. But in fact, it was a heroic young lady who grabbed her own gun, ran out of the house, and defended that officer with deadly force. Fully, absolutely, completely justified deadly force. So is that the end of the story? Well, unfortunately, it's not the end of the story. But it's a story that ended up having a good ending. We'll get to that when we come back. In the meantime, we've had a couple of great callers, great questions. Give us a call, 317-239-9393. That's 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Kendall and Casey.
They found the aliens. The Mexican government whipped out these 2 alien corpses. 30% of their DNA is unknown. We found them in algae somewhere. This little corpse looks like something that Kev could make in about an hour.
Is that paper mache?
That's exactly what it looks like. They got some Mod Podge on there.
Kendall and Casey. Weekdays 9 till noon on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. As I always say, our most popular class is Essentials of Indiana Gun Law. This is 4.5 to 5 hours of the most important legal information you need as an Indiana gun owner. Detailed discussion of when you are and are not justified in using force to defend yourself or your home or your family. And a lot of other essential information, too, like where you can and cannot carry a firearm. There are some places where it's completely illegal. In fact, it's a felony to carry a gun, and there's no sign to tell you that. You just have to know. That's exactly the kind of thing we teach in Essentials of Indiana Gun Law. Our next one is coming up November 4th. That's a Saturday, 9 a.m. to 1:30 to 2 in the afternoon at Indy Arms. They're at 2550 East 55th Street, conveniently located on the northeast side of Indy. You can sign up right online. It's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. You can sign up right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Everyone's talking about Galaxy Concrete Coatings and their transformation, like your neighbor Brett.
We did Galaxy for the sidewalks and also the porch. The porch had a few pits. Galaxy said that was no problem.
Home or business, Galaxy Concrete Coatings got you covered.
Obviously with the front sidewalk and step, so we didn't worry about any kind of slipping. You know, you're concerned about that after rain. And then when it did dry, it didn't spot, it didn't stain. It was just like it had been done yesterday.
Lots of styles to choose from. 4 times stronger than epoxy and a 15-year warranty.
One thing that my wife commented on was how easy the Galaxy coating swept versus just the bare concrete.
Click on GalaxyConcreteCoatings.com now. That's Galaxy Concrete Coatings. And remember to like us on Facebook. Galaxy Concrete Coatings. We're out of this world.
We moved here recently. I didn't even think twice about calling anyone else but Galaxy to come do this house.
Are you tired of paying these insane rates on your credit cards and other loans? You can cut those payments by hundreds of dollars a month by using the equity in your home. What's up? It's Hammer here from the Hammer and Nigel Show. Loan Pronto is here, and they can help you tap that equity and get tens of thousands of dollars in less than a week. Their Equity Express line of credit can get you enough money to pay off all those ridiculous high-interest credit cards or maybe that car loan. You won't lose your 3% mortgage rate. It stays intact. You can access up to 90% of your home's value, and in most cases, there's no appraisal. Stop paying ridiculous interest rates on those credit cards and get tens or even hundreds of thousands in cash in as little as 5 days. Call Loan Pronto today. 317-953-6525. 953-6525. 953-6525. LoanPronto.com. Equal housing lender. NMLS 1661781. Subject to lender approval.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind. Ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind. Ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
We may be thousands of miles apart, but we can still connect. And when we do, we make things better. At Child Fund, we connect children all around the world with what they need to grow up healthy, educated, and safe. Together, we co-create connections that help millions of children who live in poverty worldwide, and their families, and their communities, and you. Join us. Together, we can make the world a better place. 2 small worlds at a time. Visit childfund.org to learn more.
The latest local news, commentary from Tony Katz, Kendall and Casey,
5.6%
Hammer and Nigel,
Biden.
podcasts. Listen to the station live, whenever, wherever, online at WIBC.com. Your rights, your responsibilities, your guns. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. By the way, welcome our callers. We always want to take questions and comments from our listeners. Give us a call, 317-239-9393. Let's get back to the subject at hand. So I was discussing what happened with the heroic actions of Kirstie Phillips down in southern Indiana. Her name was Kirstie Janin at the time, if you want to look up the news report of this. But she was absolutely, completely justified. Local police officers, certainly the heroes, the local FOP called her a hero, Fraternal Order of Police. Local prosecutor's office called her a hero. No consideration at any point of filing any criminal charges against her because, of course, what she did was not only heroic, but it was fully legally justified for the reasons I went through before the break. So you would think that would be the end of it, right? And we had language at the time in the self-defense statute that says no person shall be held in any legal jeopardy whatsoever. Well, you'd think that pretty much puts the end to any legal issue. Well, now, almost 2 years later, so sometime late in 2018, early 2019, Kirstie gets sued. Gets sued for millions of dollars. There's a law firm right across the river from Rising Sun in Cincinnati. Filed a lawsuit, a wrongful death lawsuit. I said, oh, well, she just overreacted. They were suggesting she's just a hysterical female who overreacted and ran out there and shot a guy when there was no need to shoot him. Totally ignoring the fact this guy was about to shoot an officer in the face with his own gun, but filed a lawsuit. And oh, by the way, since this unfolded in Kirstie's front yard, where the traffic stop occurred, her homeowner's insurance was implicated. Let's talk about homeowner's insurance for just a minute. Homeowner's insurance, has a liability provision if somebody gets hurt, injured on your property, and they say you're liable for that, or their estate, their survivors say you're legally responsible for that, then you have liability coverage. But there's an exclusion to the liability coverage for intentional acts. In other words, if somebody comes over to my house and I just haul off and punch them in the face for no reason, with no justification, I don't have any insurance for that because it's an intentional act. However, there's an exception to the exclusion. Sounds like an insurance policy, doesn't it? There's an exception to the exclusion, which is I can use force legally if it's justified to defend myself or another person. So this is on her property, so her homeowner's insurance gets involved. But first of all, they say, well, we want to control the defense. We're going to hire a lawyer. We can settle it if we want to settle it. And oh, by the way, they sent her what's called a reservation of rights letter that says if you're found to have not acted legally and justifiably, then there's no coverage for any liability. So in other words, she's getting sued. If the plaintiffs would win what they're asking for, which is millions of dollars, doesn't mean they're going to collect that much, but that's what they were suing for. And in order to win, a jury, for instance, would have to decide she was not justified in what she did, then she has no coverage for that. So this is not a good situation to be in, particularly when she wants a passionate defense. She wants it proven that what she did was right, because to suggest otherwise is very, very painful. Because she had to go through. Listen, I mean, this is a God-fearing, single mom, good person with a good heart. She didn't want to take anybody's life that day. It was a very, very traumatic experience. Then to get sued on top of that and be facing the loss of her home, the loss of her kids' college funds, loss of all her finances, big deal. And now they're saying, oh, well, and by the way, if you're found not to have been justified, there's no insurance coverage. Tough situation to be in, but again, it has a happy ending, which we'll get into when we come back. Right now, we're taking a break at the top of the hour. This is Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
My little brother's friends have been camped out at our place for 2 days straight. 3. It's because of the Xfinity 10G network. Internet that can handle a house full of screens at once, with basically no interruptions. And it's only getting faster. When I was their age, internet like this was a pipe dream.
You sound like my grandpa.
Please go home.
The next generation 10G network only from Xfinity. The future starts now. Now through November 15th, new customers can get 75 megabit internet on the next generation Xfinity 10G network for just $20 a month for 12 months with no annual contract. Go to Xfinity.com/10G, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless billing and autopay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra. After promo, regular rates apply to internet service. Actual speeds vary.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message and data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out.
Binges, blackouts, regret, shame, trying and failing to drink less or quit. Hi, I'm Jonathan, founder of OrHealth. I know how scary drinking too much can be because I struggled with alcohol misuse for most of my adult life. But I also know that it is possible to drink less or quit, and medication can help. Naltrexone is a safe, effective medication that makes it easier to cut back or quit drinking, so you don't have to rely on willpower alone. I started OrHealth to make access to naltrexone convenient and private, to help people like me regain control over alcohol.
If you're ready to stop drinking or just drink less, text WILL to 323232 to get a secure link to OrHealth's private online assessment. Our licensed medical professionals will evaluate your assessment, and if medication is right for you, prescribe it online. We'll deliver your prescription right to your door. No doctor's office visits required. Text the word WILL to 323232 to get started today. That's WILL to 323232.
A lot of schools talk about training the cybersecurity workforce of the future, but do they really deliver? My Computer Career has been supplying the IT workforce with thousands of skilled, certified pros for 15 years. Train with the experts in support, networking, or cybersecurity and start your career in months, not years. Upskill even faster. On campus or live online, qualified students may get financial aid, including the GI Bill. My Computer Career. Accredited, acclaimed, effective. Take the free career evaluation at mycomputercareer.edu.
Hammer
Nigel here, inviting you to join us as we kick off the weekend every Friday around 5:45 with Beer Sample Friday, brought to you by our friends at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus.
You let him try violin because you love him. And if you love him that much, love him enough to make sure he's buckled up and in the back seat. Find out more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
There are screening tests to catch cancer early. Visit cancer.org/getscreened.
Broadcasting from the Peterman Brothers Heating, Plumbing, and Electrical Studios, this is Indy's Mobile News, 93 WIBC. WIBC HD1 Indianapolis. The news starts now.
Israel is at war with Hamas. I'm Ann Carrick, Fox News. The Palestinian militant group launching thousands of rockets into Israel near the border with Gaza. Hundreds are dead, more than 1,000 injured. Fox's Trey Yingst reports from southern Israel.
We are not sure what the plans of the Israeli military are about what will take place in the coming days, but there are many options on the table. One of them has to do with sending troops into Gaza, which is a real possibility given the significance of what occurred earlier today with more than 100 Israelis killed in a cross-border attack. The other possibility is Lebanon and Hezbollah getting involved in this fight. And it's certainly of a concern to Israeli officials, and it's part of the reason they are raising the posture here, because they want to ensure that if Iran or its proxies across the region decide to capitalize on this, that the army is prepared.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declaring war and calling up reservists to respond. President Biden speaking with the Prime Minister and releasing a statement condemning the terrorist attack.
Israel has the right to defend itself and its people. Full stop. There's never justification for terrorist attacks. And my administration's support for Israel's security is rock solid and unwavering.
And as you heard the president saying, Israel has the right to defend itself and its people. As Israel ramps up military responding to that attack by Hamas and rallying international support, former President Trump is commenting while speaking to supporters in Waterloo, Iowa.
The Israeli attack was made because we are perceived as being weak and ineffective and with a really weak leader. And we will discuss it in a few minutes. But isn't that a shame what's happening all over the world? Things are not what they were just 3 years ago.
President Biden addressing the nation today, confirming U.S. support of Israel is rock solid. America is listening to Fox News.
New from the Fox News Podcast Network.
I'm Emily Campagno, and this is the Fox True Crime Podcast.
And I had nothing to do with her disappearance.
I sit down with the people who lived the nightmares.
I was in shock. I was just devastated.
The investigators who tirelessly worked on the case.
And I really hope that they can catch this guy.
Bringing you closer to the story than you ever thought possible.
Listen and follow now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
These are the stories that keep you up at night.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Listen to the all-new Bret Baier podcast featuring Common Ground, talking to lawmakers weekly from opposite sides of the political spectrum about the issues of the day and how Americans can find common ground in a politicized world.
That's just not happening on Capitol Hill. It takes leadership, right?
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Along with all your Bret Baier favorites like the campaign, the candidates, the all-star panel, and much more. Available now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
93 WIBC Mobile News. On the level, on the go.
It's worth a lot of money. I'm Sasha Nixon. Here's what's trending this hour. ESPN reports that the Indianapolis Colts have granted running back Jonathan Taylor a 3-year contract extension worth $42 million. The deal will make him one of the NFL's highest-paid running backs. Taylor's future with the team had been in limbo between the contract disputes and his lengthy stay on the physically unable to perform list. But the Hoosier team also announced Saturday that Taylor has been activated. So Colts fans could see him on the field Sunday when the team plays the Tennessee Titans at Lucas Oil Stadium. Public indecency is the charge against a man from Richmond. John Herrick explains.
As for how police say that man, Charles Moore, was caught, it was a report that came from a father who saw what Moore was doing at a Walmart, says Greenfield Deputy Police Chief Chuck McMichael.
A father essentially had witnessed a man exposing his genitals inside of the store,
He says they got the report on Tuesday, made the arrest Wednesday, and announced it on Friday. McMichael says it's likely that Moore has been doing this kind of thing at stores in the past. John Herbeck, 93, WIBC Mobile News.
But the Heartland Film Festival is going on now through October 15th.
This year we have 120 feature films, plus some of our winners from our Oscar-qualifying Indie Shorts Festival.
Artistic director of the festival, Greg Sorvig, has more than 400 film screenings going on in central Indiana. On the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com. Now here's the forecast from the American Standard Heating Weather Center.
Clouds will increase across the area. Wind gusts still around 20 miles an hour. Our low temperatures back into the upper 30s. And for Sunday, mostly cloudy skies. Can't rule out an isolated shower. On Wish TV, Storm Track 8 meteorologist Ryan Morse for 93 WIBC.
Are you a dedicated family caregiver who finds yourself putting the needs of others before your own? Do you ever take a moment for yourself? This is Tina McIntosh, founder of Joy's House, and we are excited to partner with Teepa Snow of the Positive Approach to Care. I'll be right back after these words from Teepa with an invitation that you will not want to miss.
Thank you, Tina. In my experience, care partners are distressed when the person says, I want to go home, and they are home. My number one tip for overcoming this and other stressful moments while providing care is to pause and reflect. You want to go home, offer a choice. Do you need to do something there, or you just don't want to be here? I'll be sharing more tips like this at our upcoming presentation, and I hope you'll join us. Back to Tina for the details.
Understanding yourself as a caregiver and what you need with Teepa. This is a free event that's going to take place on October 13th at 1 p.m. on Butler University's campus. Call us at 317-254-0828 or visit joyshouse.org to register today. And we cannot wait to see you.
What if the next time you painted your home was the last time you painted your home?
Our home has had Rhino Shield for 10 years.
Rhino Shield. Call 888-RHINO-41. Don't paint, don't vinyl. Go Rhino.
When you're high, you feel different. But if you feel different, you drive different. So don't drive high. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. This is the Second Amendment. And this is the Gun Guy.
Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, 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 boom. Bang, bang, bang.
With Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back for hour number 2 of the Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. I'll be getting right back to the discussion of the heroic actions of Kirstie Janin. And really how that led to a dramatic improvement in Indiana law and how that came to bear in a case right here in Marion County here very recently. But before I do, though, a couple people have called in. So let's go to the phone lines. We've got Ron. Ron, welcome to the Gun Guy Show.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
Pretty good fall, pretty good fall day. Really nice.
Yeah, I appreciate it. What you got for us?
Like I told your producer, I probably should know the answer to this question, but I'm retired law enforcement officer in March after 30 years. Decided to leave a stressful job to a real stressful job, went and got my CDL. Going through and when I got hired by the motor carrier, they were telling us that it's against federal law for a semi-driver, CDL driver to possess or carry the firearm while they're working. And I wasn't sure of that, and I didn't know if that mattered, if you were a retired police officer, if that kind of superseded that, if that was even the case.
They're saying it's prohibited?
Yes, by federal law for a motor carrier. That's what they were telling us. Now, I realize their SOP is probably, as a company, but there's... But,
Ron, I have had other people say that they were told that by their employers when they were, CDL, commercial driver license holders, truckers, for instance. And I've never found that law. I do not know that to be true. It may be out there and I'm somehow unfamiliar with it, but it's one of those that I think I would know about specifically doing what I do for a living. A lot, as you mentioned, a lot of company policies are going to say that you can't have a gun in your commercial vehicle, and they can fire you for doing that. And yes, they can do that. There are certain protections for workers with respect to firearms, but that it's not included. to have a gun in a commercial vehicle, contrary to the policy of your employer. But I have never found that federal law. I've looked in the Department of Transportation regs. It's certainly not in the criminal code. So I have never found that law. If somebody has seen that, somebody give me a citation, because I will happily stand corrected. But I've had people ask me that question for a lot of years. I've gone looking for it, and I've never found it. So if somebody could point that out to me, if it in fact it exists, I'd love to see it. But to my knowledge, there's no such law or regulation. Let's go back to the phone lines, and Matt has a question.
Hey, Guy. How are you today?
Good, Matt. You doing all right?
Yeah, good. I had a question about the Daniel Perry case down in Austin, Texas.
Sure.
So it seemed to me that his prosecution hinged not only on his public Facebook posts, but private Facebook messages as well. And can you talk to how social media might come into play in a self-defense trial? Or
absolutely.
Thank you.
No, it's a great question, Matt. And I think I talked about it a little bit at the time. But it certainly bears repeating in particular, and I think it's right in context with what we're talking about tonight, which is a self-defense scenario. But for anybody who's not familiar with this or doesn't recall, Daniel Perry was in a vehicle, and this is during the summer of love, as Hammer and Nigel like to describe it, when all the riots and protests and marches and whatnot were going on. But, a lot of them obviously turned violent. A lot of them turned destructive. But this was in Austin, Texas. And Daniel Perry was out in his vehicle, and there was a march or a protest going on. And he actually turned toward the protest and drove his car toward it. And that was a fact very much used against him. He didn't turn away from it. He turned toward it. But as he went toward it, and got close to these marchers or protesters or rioters, whatever it is they were being at the time, a particular person came walking up toward his vehicle with an AK-47. And Daniel Perry testified the person pointed it at him. Other people contradicted that and said, no, he never actually pointed it at him. He just had it in his hands. And so there was conflicting testimony on that point. But this guy came walking up toward his vehicle with an AK-47. Daniel Perry took his handgun and shot and killed this guy. And he was tried and ultimately convicted. And I don't remember if it was actually for murder or whether it was manslaughter. It'd be hard-pressed to say he planned all of this. But I want to say it was actually murder is my recollection as I'm sitting here. And so a lot of people were really upset about that, saying, hold on, this guy is driving his car, minding his own business. If somebody approaches his car with an AK, he simply defended himself, and he still got not only prosecuted but convicted. And it is shocking to think about until you get into some of the actual facts that came out during trial. And this is exactly what Matt is asking about and why he's asking a really important question. Because the prosecution was able to introduce, and again, they definitely used the fact that he turned toward the protesters. But in addition, they used against him the fact that he had posted on social media, and Matt said Facebook, and I think that's right. For instance, I remember one specifically, and I'm not trying to quote this, I'm paraphrasing, but one, a matter of days before this shooting that he was involved in, he posted from his apartment, there was a protest or a march or something going by, and he said, well, there are protesters out again today. I hope I won't have to shoot someone. So he talked about shooting a protester before the actual shooting. And prosecutors were able to use that to say he was looking for a fight. He was looking for an excuse. He wasn't acting justifiably, which is in fear for his life or in fear of serious bodily injury. And I'm sure the Texas self-defense law is something very, very close to that. But in fact, he was looking for an excuse because he was mad about all these protests. He was mad about the traffic stoppages. He was mad about businesses being shut down. He was mad about the effect the protests were having. So he, by God, was going to take the law in his own hands, and he was going to shoot somebody. That's how they portrayed it. And I am not suggesting for a moment that's what happened. And I just referred to one post. There were multiple posts they were able to introduce at trial. And so he took what was definitely a winnable case on self-defense and made it much, much harder for his legal team, for his lawyer to win, because he said things on social media that were used against him at trial. And I got to tell you, it's a great question, Matt, and I'm glad you raised it. And again, I appreciate it being germane to the topic of the show as well, because I'll see people post things on social media, and I'm sure when they post them, they think they just sound macho or tough or, taking a strong stance against crime. Hey, look, I understand. And I'm as much a law and order guy as anybody. There's a reason I carry a gun everywhere I can lawfully carry a gun, because I want to have the capacity to defend myself. But if you put something on social media that makes you look like you're looking for a fight, or you're looking for an excuse to shoot someone, or you're mad at someone or a group of people, like protesters, rioters, whatever you want to call them, and then, God forbid, something happens where you're actually called upon to shoot them, don't think for a minute that won't be used against you. And it can be used, as we learned with Daniel Perry in Austin, Texas, it can be used very, very effectively against you. I saw somebody with grips that they'd put on their gun that said "Born to Kill." Well, okay, makes you sound tough. We've seen some movies with that, where somebody had that tattoo or whatever. Oh wow, that sounds so tough. That sounds so macho. God forbid you actually end up having to use lethal force. Don't think for a moment that won't be used against you, because you made the decision to put that grip on your gun. And we can talk about gun modifications and what matter and what don't among modifications. But anything that goes to your state of mind, in particular where you're looking for a fight, that can take away from the idea that you were acting innocently, merely trying to defend yourself or someone else, could definitely be used against you. And we learned that with Daniel Perry, and it's a very important point. I'm glad that Matt raised it. In the meantime, we're at the quarter hour. We're taking a break. Give us a call. We've had great questions and comments so far. Give us a call with your question or comment, 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
We feel
it as soon as you step out the door.
What you feel.
Bundle up. Feels like winter.
It's going to be more like summertime.
Do you feel like we do? All the feels.
It feels a little like winter.
Feels more like summer.
Of fall.
It's kind of the clash of two seasons.
Weather, mornings, and afternoons.
The ebbs and flows this time of the year is so evident.
On your official fall weather station. 93 WIBC.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. We've got another Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class coming up on Saturday, November 4th. It's going to be from 9 a.m. to 1:30 to 2. It's about 4.5 hours of the most important legal information you need as an Indiana gun owner. It's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. We'd love to see you there. It's going to be at Indy Arms. There at 2550 East 55th Street, just off of Keystone on 55th Street. Very easy to get to. Beautiful, new, well-kept gun range with a nice, large, comfortable classroom. We'd love to see you there Saturday, November 4th, 9 a.m. to 1:30 to 2, $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. You can register right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
Denny Smith here for Sundown Gardens. It's the big fall sale at Sundown Gardens and Miss M's Home and Garden this week. 20 to 40% off nursery stock at Sundown Gardens and Miss M's. The nursery still has a large selection of container trees and shrubs. Visit Sundown Gardens and Miss M's to save between 20 and 40% off through the 15th of October. Sundown Gardens at 186th Street and Spring Mill Road in Westfield. Miss M's Home and Garden on State Road 135 south of Whiteland Road in Bargersville.
Get revved up for the return of Indiana Pacers basketball. The season tips off with opening night presented by Kroger on Wednesday, October 25th.
Mathurin into the lane for a two-hand Smith slam, perfectly executed.
Be there for every dime, every dunk, every game-winning basket all season long.
T.J. McConnell with the steal and the basket.
Tickets for all games are now on sale. Fans' Choice and a Pacers Plus plan are also available. Visit Pacers.com/tickets for more info.
Do you have an invention idea but don't know what to do next? Call InventHelp today. We have representatives nationwide who will explain the InventHelp process step by step. Over 10,000 patents have been secured through InventHelp's patent referral services. The InventHelp databank includes thousands of companies who have agreed to review new ideas. We've been helping inventors since 1984. Let's help you next. Get started today.
Call 1-800-217-4380. That's 1-800-217-4380. Again, 1-800-217-4380.
As a caring adult of a 7th or 8th grader, you may see their college plans as a distant process, but in reality, it'll be here in no time. Think about it. Your child could be heading to college by the time you pay off your next car. There's a good reason for middle schoolers and you to start planning their path to college today. This message is brought to you by the Indiana Youth Institute. Indiana's 21st Century Scholarship provides eligible students with up to 4 years of paid college tuition. So here's what you need to know. It is key that we make sure every eligible child is enrolled in the program. Requirements vary dependent upon age, and early sign-up is available for 7th grade students. For more information on the 21st Century Scholarship, visit learnmoreindiana.org/scholars. This Kids Count Minute is a message from the Indiana Youth Institute. For more parent tips, visit IYI.org.
Kids count on you.
When I was younger, I may have did some stupid things, even committed some crimes, but I am not a criminal.
I work for youth advocate programs. Yeah, I was Tamani's advocate, helping him stay out of jail, stay in the neighborhood, and get a job.
As a little kid, I experienced trauma and I acted out. Made some mistakes, but I'm not a mistake.
As Jalen's YAP advocate, I'm always here for her.
YAP is a community-based alternative to youth incarceration and neighborhood violence. Youth advocate programs. Learn how at yapinc.org.
Teachers shape the future. Right now, in a classroom somewhere in the United States, there's a teacher inspiring a future scientist who'll make preventing pandemics their life's work. Sharpening the mind of an aspiring environmentalist who'll help combat climate change. And generating possibilities for a student who'll be the first in their family to graduate college. Explore a career that leaves a legacy you can be proud of. Teach. Learn more and receive free support at teach.org.
Indy Humane, committed to helping Central Indiana's pets in need since 1905. Find your new best friend today. IndyHumane.org.
The Indianapolis Public Library. More than just books. Visit your local branch today.
Now you've got a gun guy. Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back to the Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. Today, during the break, we had Robert call in because an earlier caller called in and said that he was told by his employer that it's illegal for someone to have a firearm in their commercial truck if they have a CDL, a commercial driver's license. And my answer at the time was, you know what, I've been asked that a lot over the years. I've gone looking for it. I can find no such law. I'm always hesitant to tell someone, oh no, there's no such law, because there's a possibility it exists out there in some place that I didn't look. But Robert has called in, and Robert, you say you can answer that question.
Hey, Guy. Quick Google search says there's no federal motor carrier safety regulation that prohibits a firearm from being possessed by a commercial vehicle operator while driving a commercial vehicle.
There you go. That sounds right to me, Robert. And where's that come from? It sounds like you were quoting something.
Yeah, quick Google search, man.
So you got that Google law degree going for you there. Hey, good for you, Robert. Like I said, I've gone looking for it. I've actually gotten into the legal libraries electronically and gone looking for any kind of DOT regulation or anything along those lines. But hey, It's good to see that a Google search anyway confirms that. But thanks for calling in. We appreciate it. Let's get back to the topic we've been running throughout the show, because again, Kirstie Janin, later Kirstie Phillips, and you heard the story before the break at the top of the hour. She heroically saved the life of a police officer and still got sued when there was no hint of anything she did illegal. But because this happened in her front yard, there was homeowners insurance involved, and there was a $300,000 limit on her homeowners policy. And wouldn't you know it, the family of the deceased bad guy who tried to kill a police officer, and their lawyer said, we'll just take the $300,000 limits for the homeowners policy and go away. And you won't have to worry about this anymore. And the insurance company gets to make that decision under almost any liability policy you're ever going to have. And the local FOP down there, the Fraternal Order of Police down in Rising Sun, Indiana, looked at this whole situation, and they didn't like anything about this. Not only the fact that she'd been sued, but the fact that the insurance company could really call a lot of the shots. And so what they did is they started a GoFundMe. And they called it, I'll never forget it, they called it Kirstie's Best Defense. And they raised a bunch of money. I mean, just shy of six figures. And then one of the officers, as part of the FOP, actually called NRA in Virginia and said, hey, we're looking for a self-defense attorney. Would be the best one to have in a situation like this in Indiana. And I'm very grateful. NRA told them to call me. And so they did. I got a call from Kirstie herself, and she sort of interviewed me over the phone and made the decision to hire me. And after she hired me, I told her at the time, I said, Kirstie, not only are we going to win this ridiculous lawsuit, because you didn't do anything wrong. I looked up all the media reports on it, and they were all completely consistent with what she told me. I said, not only are we going to win this frivolous lawsuit, but we're going to change the law. Because I hearkened right back to what I talked about in the first hour, which is sitting through these lectures at firearms training facilities, where they've said, well, even if you're completely justified, even if you don't get prosecuted, you're going to get sued. Just count on it. You're going to get sued. And thinking to myself, that's not okay. Why is that okay? Why does everybody just accept that? Like, well, yeah, that's what's going to happen. No, hell no. This needs to change, at least in Indiana. And you know what? Maybe it'll take off and we can change it many other places as well in many other states. So we did two things. I started defending the lawsuit and sent the message to the plaintiff's lawyers that I was involved. I didn't have to worry about getting paid, in the sense that there was this GoFundMe account set up. So that wasn't coming out of Kirstie's pocket. So she didn't have to worry about that. And that was through the good work of the officers down in Rising Sun, Indiana, who set up that GoFundMe. But secondly, I started working on a bill. And I called some of the Pro-2A legislators in the Indiana General Assembly, and Jim Lucas was the first guy I thought of. And I called Jim Lucas and I said, Jim, I'm going to write a bill in Indiana that makes it very clear that there's complete immunity for the lawful and justified use of force and self-defense, even as against a civil lawsuit, and creates a mechanism to get one of these cases dismissed early, thrown out. And I want to provide a deterrent to any such future lawsuit. And Jim said, sounds great, Guy. You write it, send it over, and I'll introduce it. And that's exactly what we did in 2019. I wrote it. We sent it to the legislative services there in the State House. Their job is to sort of finesse it into looking like a statute, but I'd written a number of bills before, so they didn't have to do much. And we started going through the process. And I'll tell you what, the most compelling thing out of the whole process, the legislative process, is that Kirstie, and listen, she wasn't looking for any limelight. She wasn't looking for any attention. This whole thing was incredibly traumatic to her. She had to take a human life. She's a religious lady, a God-fearing young lady, single mom, good person. She wasn't looking for any of this. But you know what she did? She made the decision to come to the State House, and she testified in both the Senate Judiciary Committee and the House Judiciary Committee. And she put herself through that, and she had to relive the trauma of the whole event, including the trauma of getting sued and feeling like she was going to lose her house and her kids' savings plans and the whole spiel, college savings plans. And she was willing to do that because what she told me, she said, you know what, Guy, if a lawsuit like this is successful, if somebody if anybody knows they can be sued under these circumstances, even though they're completely lawful and justified, maybe the next person won't pick up their gun and run outside and save the life of that police officer. And that's why she made the decision to do it. So she was a hero again. She was a hero by saving the life of a police officer right there in her front yard. She was a hero again by showing up at the Indiana General Assembly and testifying. And it wasn't easy on her. It was traumatic on her. And I'll tell you, in both hearings, in both the House and the Senate, she told her story. There wasn't a dry eye in the place because of how traumatic the whole thing was to her. But she was so eloquent. She was so well-spoken in telling the story, it affected everybody. There were some Democrats that were tearing up. You don't see that often on an issue like this. And that's why we got that passed. And I mentioned I wanted to build a deterrent into it. What's that mean? Well, it has immunity. There's a mechanism where you can get a case dismissed early based on the immunity and use the fact there was no criminal prosecution to say that raises a presumption that you were fully justified if you were not prosecuted. And you can use that presumption to obtain what's called summary judgment, which is an early dismissal of a lawsuit. And if you win a case based on the immunity, even at trial, based on a jury verdict or through summary judgment, get an early dismissal, then the plaintiffs have to pay back the defendant all their attorney's fees. There's a mandatory attorney's fees provision in it. That's how we wrote it. And guess what? When this was going through the committee process and was in the House, and we went in and we had this hearing in Jerry Torr's Judiciary Committee in the House that Representative Jerry Torr chairs and does a fabulous job. By the way, he's just publicly announced that he's not running for re-election, and it broke my heart. I consider Jerry a dear friend. He's incredibly effective in the Indiana General Assembly. I've been in many meetings. I've been through a lot of discussions where Jerry's the only adult in the room, where people get mad, people get frustrated, and Jerry's the one to always be calm and smart. And we owe him a huge thank you. He represents a large part of Carmel and right where my office is, for instance, and we've been blessed to have him in the General Assembly and blessed to have him as chair of the Judiciary Committee, and he's also a dear friend personally, so I'll still maintain, obviously, my relationship with him, but to not have him in the House and in the General Assembly anymore is personally breathtaking. But in that when it was clear this was being looked upon favorably by the legislators, I called the TV stations in Cincinnati, where this law firm was, that had sued Kisti in her case. Said, by the way, Kisti came in and is helping us get this passed, and this is going to get cases like hers dismissed early, and there's a mandatory attorney's fees provision in it. Just think you guys ought to know that. It's really interesting since all this unfolded right there in your backyard. And they all ran that story, including telephone interviews with me. And lo and behold, you know what happened? The plaintiff's law firm dismissed the lawsuit. They went, oh, hell no. We want no piece of this. But then ultimately we got that statute passed. And that's the law of the land now. It has been since 2019. Governor Holcomb signed that bill along with Church Carey, a couple other pro-2-way provisions in it right from the stage of the leadership conference at the NRA annual meeting 2019 that was here in town at the time. And that was a great day. And Kisti Phillips was there to see it. But that's the law in Indiana now, and it's the strongest self-defense immunity law in the country. And I'm advocating everywhere I know to for other states to pick this up and get it passed there too, because you know what? You shouldn't have to fight that battle number 3. If you were fully justified, there's no reason why you ought to face a frivolous lawsuit and face the incredible financial burden and financial risks that entails. And it's a good law. It's a solid law. It ought to be the law in all 50 states. And I'm gonna see what I can do to make that happen. In the meantime, we've got to apply that new law in another case of mine right here in Marion County, as I've talked about a bit. So we'll get into that here quickly when we come back. Right now, we're taking a break. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Tony Katz.
I alphabetized my soundboard. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. F?
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
I have to go to S for Sopranos. Makes sense.
Yeah, I think you got it.
It's so clean now. It's fantastic. Yeah, we have clearly run out of things to talk about. There's nothing else going on in the world.
It's a great world, everything's so.
This show is stupid.
Tony Katz, mornings 6 to 9 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Premier Deck Coating, the ultimate deck protection. Who are they? Well, they're a sister company of Rhino Shield, and Premier Deck Coating is the product you need if you're tired of applying the same old stain and paint every couple of years to your deck. It's Terry, Stacy, and David and I have a deck that's probably 25 years old. The countless hours and the money that we spend on maintaining that deck never ends. And then we heard about Premier Deck Coating. Family owned, based right here in Indy, and they are going to completely transform our deck with their special formulated product, which repels moisture, scratch resistant in virtually any color that we want, and backed by a 10-year guarantee. No more spending time staining or painting every year. Premier Deck Coating will keep our deck looking great for years to come. Premier Deck Coating can also do fences and pergolas too. For a free quote, call 317-696-4071 or visit premierdeckcoating.com.
This time next week, I'll be sick in bed with West Nile virus, thanks to a mosquito bite right in front of my house.
In 8 minutes, my daughter will be in an ambulance, having an asthma attack, triggered by cockroaches.
I'm going to be bitten by a tick today. I won't even know it until Lyme disease turns my life upside down.
Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org. A public service message from the National Pest Management Association and the CDC.
Fox News, I'm Pam Puso.
The United States stands with the state of Israel.
President Biden says the U.S. has Israel's back after militants with Hamas lobbed thousands of rockets. They also breached a heavily fortified border wall.
Israeli media is reporting more than 200 people are dead in the southern part of this country. We got off of an Israeli military briefing where a spokesman indicated there are 22 different scenes the Israeli military is addressing right now.
Fox says Trey Yingst, Israeli civilians are being warned to stay inside. The mayor of New York City is again calling for a right to work for migrants. Eric Adams has just returned from a trip to Latin America. The city is currently housing tens of thousands of migrants. America's listening to Fox News.
Indianapolis. With Mayor Joe Hogsett, we've made real progress. Billions in new construction, unemployment at a historic low, 700 new police, $1.2 billion in new infrastructure, hundreds of new streetlights, and thousands of college scholarships. Now Joe Hogsett is fighting the state abortion ban and to get guns off the street. But Joe knows the work isn't done. It's why he's hiring even more police, expanding community policing, and investing in programs that help keep kids out of trouble. And Jefferson Shreve, he supports banning abortion. And after getting an A rating from the NRA, Jefferson Shreve has been against any new gun laws. Jefferson Shreve is bringing Trump-style politics to Indianapolis and trashing our city. Re-elect Mayor Joe Hogsett. Steady leadership in times of change.
Paid for by Hogsett for Indianapolis.
Colorectal cancer rates are on the rise, especially in younger adults. The good news? It's one of the few cancers that can be prevented through screening. So we're keeping up, making some changes, and saving lives. Franciscan Health now offers colonoscopy screenings for adults aged 45 and up. No doctor referral needed. And they're covered at 100% by most insurance plans. Are you 45? Screen sooner. Schedule your colonoscopy at franciscanhealth.org/coloncare.
My name is Jamie Bowles, and I was diagnosed with non-small cell lung cancer in December of 2018. Nobody would even know looking at me that I have stage 4 lung cancer. And I'm grateful for biomarker testing for that. When I was sitting down with my oncologist, there was already state-of-the-art medication available that I was going to be put on right then and there. Ask your doctor how comprehensive biomarker testing before treatment may help you decide on the best treatment. Visit noonemissed.org to learn more.
A public service message from Longevity Foundation.
He's a Second Amendment attorney. He's an NRA certified firearms instructor. He's the gun guy. Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back. I'm Guy Relford on the Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC. We're talking about the new immunity law we've had since 2019 that arose out of the heroic actions of Kirstie Phillips, named Kirstie Janin at the time, who saved the life of a police officer but still got sued. And we said, you know what? We shouldn't let that happen. But in the meantime, Annie has called in with a question. Annie, you have a question for us?
Hi, Guy. I've long wondered about this aspect of her case. Obviously, she had stepped out in her own yard, and possibly the 3 teenage children had stepped out behind her to back her up. She pointed her gun at the shooter and made a target of herself by commanding him to stop. He didn't, and all the shooter had to do was shoot the downed officer in the face and then turn the gun on Kirstie. And I was wondering about the principle of, is it curtilage? I'm not sure if I'm saying it right.
Yeah, curtilage. Yeah, it's the correct word. Yeah, she also protected? I mean, she was clearly justified, no matter how you look at it, because she was saving an officer's life. But your question is, does the curtilage provision of the Castle Doctrine also did that also protect her, or should it have? I get your question right?
Yes, and she was also obviously fearful for her own life being the next target, and possibly the 3 children.
Yeah, I mean the kids. My recollection is, Annie, they didn't follow her out; they were still in the house, but still, she was right there, and yeah, she's potentially in harm's way if this bad guy successfully shoots the officer. This wouldn't be a case where Castle Doctrine and the curtilage provision of Castle Doctrine necessarily applies, though. In fact, it wouldn't, and here's why. What the concept of curtilage applies to areas outside the actual walls of your home where you have some expectation of privacy. It applies particularly if you're within an enclosure that also encloses the home, like, say, a security fence or something along those lines, and where normal domestic activities occur, like the same things you do in your house. So what is curtilage? Your screened-in porch is likely going to be curtilage. Now, we don't have any curtilage cases in Indiana, but your whole yard is not your curtilage. Because you don't have an expectation of privacy. Here, the yard was open to the street. This is happening just a matter of a few feet, if that, from the edge of the road. So it's not an area where, you're going to hang out and cook and clean or read or do the other those normal domestic activities like you do in your home. And it's not somewhere where you have an expectation of privacy, and it wasn't within any kind of an enclosure that also enclosed her home. So curtilage isn't going to work. And there's a lot of confusion. It's something I spend some time on in my gun law class that you hear me pitching here on the radio all the time. And because there's a lot of confusion about curtilage, it does not extend to your whole yard. You can't say, well, the person was on my property, therefore I could shoot him. Absolutely not. It does not work that way. You can't just shoot trespassers. And there are people, when I tell them that, they don't like hearing it. And I'll have people say, well, I grew up on a farm, and my dad and my grandpa always told me, if you see a trespasser, we're going to shoot him. Well, okay, but that doesn't mean it's legal. And it's because it's not. So yeah, curtilage applies to some limited areas, but we have no cases that define it any more specifically. And so I'm going to be very limited in terms of, my reliance on curtilage if I'm outside my home. If I'm outside my home, what I'm going to rely on for justification, and look, I'll go a long way to avoid using deadly force for a lot of reasons we talked about tonight. Just get caught up in the whole process, plus how severe, how significant it is to take a human life. I don't want to do that. I'll go through a lot to avoid it. But if I do, it's going to be because I feared for my life or I feared for the life of another innocent person if I'm actually outside my home. If I'm in my home and somebody's trying to break in or someone has broken into my home, all right, I'll defend my castle, I'll defend my home, I'll defend my family, and I'll do it with extreme prejudice, as they say. But curtilage is much more limited, I think, than what people realize when you're actually outside your home. So, new case. And I'll get into this just briefly. And it's to some degree still pending. Summary judgment has been granted. So it's in the process of being dismissed. But I want to name names and that kind of thing, since there's still some open ends, and the other side may appeal it. But it's a case right here in Marion County where it is a classic castle doctrine case where a husband and wife were asleep in their beds right in Marion County, minding their own business. 3 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden the dog goes crazy. It's because someone's kicking on, putting their shoulder into the front door, trying to bust through the front door. And this guy's yelling, "Let me in, let me in." It appears to be impaired in some way, but he's not making any sense. He's going, "Let me in," and he's kicking on the door. And the husband says, "Man, go away. We don't know you." He's like, "No, let me in, let me in." And he keeps trying to force his way through the door. And they tell him again to go away. This time, the guy goes around to the back door. Now he's pounding on the back door, tries to get in through the back door. And by the grace of God, it was locked as well. And the husband, at this point, has retrieved his handgun. And he's saying, "Go away. I'm armed. Go away." And then uncontested facts were, at that point, this guy breaks the window there next to the back door in an attempt to get in. And the guy looks right through the homeowner looks right through the broken window and says, "Man, go away. I have a gun." And the guy says, "You're going to have to shoot me," and tries to come through the window. At that point, fully justified under the castle doctrine, the homeowner fires a shot and killed the guy trying to break in. And again, I mean, nobody takes that lightly. That's a big, big deal. But he tried awfully hard to avoid it, telling the guy multiple times to go away. And only when he took that act of breaking the window and tried to come through did the homeowner defend his home, defend his wife and himself. But just like in Kisty Phillips's case, Kisty Jane at the time, somebody filed a lawsuit. Oh, it's a wrongful death. It wasn't really justified. Police never for a moment recommended prosecution. The prosecutor's office never for a moment considered prosecution because it was fully justified. And at this point now, we have the new self-defense immunity statute on the books that says there's complete immunity for the lawful and justified use of force. You can't file a lawsuit. And if you do, you're looking at mandatory attorney's fees after it gets dismissed. So what happened? Well, that's what we'll go into to wrap this up. If we have any additional callers, we'll try to get to them as well. 317-239-9393. That's 317-239-9393. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Kendall and Casey.
They found the aliens. The Mexican government whipped out these 2 alien corpses. 30% of their DNA is unknown. We found them in algae somewhere. This little corpse looks like something that Kev could make in about an hour.
Is that paper mache?
That's
exactly what it looks like. They got some Mod Podge on there.
Kendall and Casey. Weekdays 9 till noon on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the woots. Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Guy Relford for Tactical Firearms Training. Our next Essentials of Indiana Gun Law class is coming up on Saturday, November 4th, right there at Indy Arms, roughly 55th and Keystone. It's just off of Keystone on 55th Street. It's $50 for an individual, $95 for couples. This is 4.5 to 5 hours of the most important legal information you need as an Indiana gun owner. You can sign up right online at tactical-firearms.com. Just click on upcoming courses at tactical-firearms.com.
Some days I cover up because of my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis. Now I'm hitting the road with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months. And Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
Are you tired of paying these insane rates on your credit cards and other loans? You can cut those payments by hundreds of dollars a month by using the equity in your home. What's up? It's Hammer here from the Hammer and Nigel Show. Loan Pronto is here, and they can help you tap that equity and get tens of thousands of dollars in less than a week. Their Equity Express line of credit can get you enough money to pay off all those ridiculous high-interest credit cards or maybe that car loan. You won't lose your 3% mortgage rate. It stays intact. You can access up to 90% of your home's value, and in most cases, there's no appraisal. Stop paying ridiculous interest rates on those credit cards and get tens or even hundreds of thousands in cash in as little as 5 days. Call Loan Pronto today, 317-953-6525, 953-6525, 953-6525, loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval.
The deals and specials are sizzling hot. It's the Central Indiana Gun and Knife Show next Saturday and Sunday at the Stoutfield National Guard Armory on West Minnesota Street. The best dealers in the region, hundreds of tables, just $6 for adults, kids 12 and under free. Must be 18 or accompanied by an adult. Buy, sell, trade. Next Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Stoutfield National Guard Armory. For more info, visit centralindianagunshows.com. Now is the time to plant. Warm days and cool nights provide the ideal growing environment. Visit Damon's Garden Center West at 4914 Rockville Road for beautiful homegrown mums in assorted colors, quality trees and shrubs, and a wide variety of grass seed. The knowledgeable staff is ready to assist you. For any of your garden and landscaping needs, stop at Damon's West.
Damon's Lawn and Garden, Indiana's most complete garden center.
There's a lot of sexy content on the internet. And there's WIBC, full of faces meant for radio. Hammer and Nigel, Kendall and Casey. Okay, Casey could be on TV. Now streaming every day on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/WIBC. Second to none on the Second Amendment. This is The Gun Guy with Guy Relford on 93 WIBC.
And welcome back to the last segment of The Gun Guy Show here on 93 WIBC. So, I'm happy to say that just like Christy Phillips' case, this more recent case in Marion County also, as of right now, has also a very happy ending in that we had a hearing on our motion for summary judgment. The very good judge right here in Marion County saw this for what it was, which was a case that should be dismissed under the new immunity statute that's been on the books since 2019, and not only granted summary judgment, but requested the defense attorney, that including me, to submit their final bill for legal services, at which point there would be an award of attorney's fees, where the plaintiffs who filed the goofy lawsuit to begin with has to reimburse defendant their attorney's fees. And so it's an important case. And listen, I don't talk about it here on the radio to gloat because we won. Gloating's always fun. I just do that at home with my wife. I don't do it much on the radio. The reason I'm talking about it here is I really want word of this to get out, and I want lawyers to know about this. It's only been on the books here for a few years, like I say, since 2019. But the law's changed in Indiana. And listen, if the facts were different, and if this was not justified, if someone has actually committed a criminal act and hurt you or hurt a family member or killed someone, and there's a potential for a wrongful death lawsuit, if it's based on a criminal act where something was done to harm your loved one or to you, and it was not legally justified, then have at it. This doesn't affect that in any way. And if there's any evidence, if there were any evidence in this case that in fact the shooting was not justified, the use of force was not justified, that would have defeated the summary judgment motion, and we'd be going forward to have a trial. It only applies where the plaintiffs can't come up with any evidence to rebut that presumption of justification that arises from no criminal prosecution. If there's any evidence to rebut that presumption, then hey, let's go have us a trial and may the best side win. But that's not the case. And where there's no evidence of criminal activity and plaintiffs are just trying to extort a settlement, especially from an insurance company. Well, it doesn't, I mean, I'm not worried about the insurance company's money. That's not my point. But they tend to do that more often because a lot of insurance companies would rather just pay a settlement for X amount of money rather than pay 2X in defense costs by defending the lawsuit on the merits. And that's why that's such a dangerous precedent, especially if those people get paid. And here, not only do these plaintiffs not get paid, they have to pay back the defendant's attorney's fees. Now, will we ever see that? Will we ever collect it? I don't know. That'll be the next chapter of the story. But in the meantime, the word should go out. And I enjoy spreading the word. In fact, I really want to attend another one of those lectures where some instructor stands up and said, oh, by the way, even if you're fully justified in using force to defend your home, or you're fully justified in defending yourself or your family, you're still going to get sued. Just count on it. You're still going to get sued. Happens every time. I want to be in the back of the room in one of these really big lecture halls, and I want to stand up and put my hand up and really loud. I want to say, not in Indiana. And that'll be satisfying because that's exactly the case. We've changed that. This lawsuit should have never been filed. I was surprised they continued with it after we raised the immunity statute. But that's why we did it. That's why Kirsty Phillips was a hero, not only for saving that officer's life that day, but also for sticking with it and helping us get that law changed. And it was her testimony that helped us get that done more than anything else. That's a big deal. And we'll be back next week. This is Guy Relford on The Gun Guy Show on 93 WIBC.
Hi, this is Denny Smith, and sometimes the scariest things aren't always in the crawl space or basement.